Hello, my name is Joseph Rory, and I'm with the Mary C. Metz School of Common Law. Today I'm going to talk to you about martial law, what it is, what it is not. An interesting news piece that Rosie ODonnell has asked for martial law to be called to interfere with the elections. Just, are you an idiot? It's clear she doesn't know what martial law is, and if she does, what kind of extremist is she, and does she really believe that martial law was to settle questions like this? Anyway, let's get into martial law. Can it even be called in the United States? Is it compatible with the Constitution? Do we have the ability to call martial law with the citizens? And let's just go over what martial law is. It will take hours and weeks to give you the full rundown of martial law, so we're just going to try to keep this in a nutshell, hopefully below 20 minutes worth of discussion. So we'll begin with martial law being originally understood back in the days of the constable courts and of the courts of constable and marshals, where the marshals would execute the judgments basically under the ecclesiastical churches. Well, one thing is clear about their power even then, was these marshals, was that they were still under the restrictions of the common law. And if they got out of order, they would receive a writ of prohibition from the common law. So we know it's not an extreme power that takes over everything and nothing else can exist until they feel like they need to go home. But the idea that people have in mind is that the president can just say martial law over Massachusetts, martial law over Connecticut, martial law over South Carolina, martial law across the nation. It's impossible. If you was to even make a statement like that, you would be usurping. The difference there would not be martial law; it would just be outright tyranny. Even if a town has got looters that, say 1,000 people in the little town is looting the place to pieces, there may be a need for some extra police power. But that would be martial law. When you call the general in, you're getting towards the idea of martial law. We've got to understand what is martial law. Can it actually be exhibited and put into place here, since we got a due process clause, and that between the idea of subduing insurrections, etc., there has to be some kind of extreme situation that we know there. But with the martial law, the kings and the queens of the past, they have made what they would call use of it when they want to destroy a little village that they thought was out of order. A misuse of no doubt, but the idea of martial law really goes down to military law. And whether or not you can ever be put under military law that would actually negate all the other laws during that purpose if it ever ends. Can you call a perpetual common law? Well, that's impossible. If you're going to negate your laws, you got to have the law that gives you the power to negate your laws. And we have a constitution that actually only limits government and anything they can do. I know they don't know that, and we all understand their dilemma as far as understanding the very seats that they're sitting in, what it's for, and the true purpose of it. But that's their ignorance, if not their willful evilness. But in one case or the other, we know they're practicing evil law. Under common law, it still supersedes, and this is where we've got to understand that Rosie O'Donnell's little cry for something that she don't even know what she's talking about is so idiotic that it's just, it sort of run me wrong here to even think that someone would say, call martial law, what, to to what, investigate the electoral situation. Well, there's other remedies. It's clearly the Constitution for that. O'Donnell wants something done about it. There's petitions you can file in the courts. I mean, there's ways to go at it. But martial law, we have the definition that the best describe martial law would just be saying the will of the general. When do you want the will of the general instituted over you or the people around you or your city or your county or your state? When would it be proper to just throw a general in there and whatever he says goes? This is the extreme theory of the martial law, and that's not what martial law is anyway. Martial law, at the most, is the ability to rule the actual military. It's law among the military. It is military law. When can it apply to civilians? Well, there are reasons. If you're in war, and most of your writers made it clear that time of peace or time of war, if you're in war, your military is conquering another military over there, and the citizens in that town is, scurrying under the tables or whatever they're at, and this military comes in and takes over, it would be under martial law there. And both citizens of that country, county, or place, and its military that they just overcame and conquered will be under military law. Now there's your martial law. There's military law. The constable courts with the marshals, they didn't never get what you'd call done away with or repealed. They just simply sort of dissolved through time and just sort of went away. And so the only principle that was left behind is the military law that was left behind. So if you think that you can call military power on the civilians, there is an extreme situation that must exist. You can't just decide there's an economical problem, there's 1,000 looters out there. There's many, many ways that can be faced. And can only be faced by the proper means existing. The borderline that Matthew Hale, Sir Edward Cook, Blackstone limited or showed where it becomes necessary to call martial law. Whether it actually exists in our country or not is not the point right now, but under the idea of common law and under the idea of martial law existing together, beside each other. One still has to prevail the other one. And so it was understood by Sir Edward Cook, Matthew Hale, and Blackstone that martial law could not be called unless the area was so chaotic or the problem was so chaotic that the courts were unable to do their duties, to process papers and to become the governing factor of the land there at that time. So if it gets so chaotic that your courts cannot even administer their job, then you've definitely got an extreme problem here. And so you got to ask yourself, all these idiots in the past like Lincoln and everybody that claimed they was calling martial law, what they were doing was just, tricking you with words and doing their little tyranny acts like they always do. And called martial law when there was no war. The Constitution requires that you declare war. And if the southern states are actually still in the Union, as they insisted they were, then you can't declare war on each other's state. It's not in the Constitution either. So the problem with the so-called declaration of martial law is that it was nothing but an act of tyranny, bringing in military force. They do this, throughout ages, and even in America they pulled a few of these so-called martial law, and they call it martial law, but by definition, could it actually be martial law? The will of the judge, the will of the general may very well be a good way to just put what martial law is. However, the problem with calling in the military is when you hand the power over to the general, because this thing is so chaotic. The question is can you still tell him what to do? And can you tell him how to do it? Well, you know, a lot of jurists of the past have argued, well, you can probably tell them what to do, but not how to do it. Once you tell them, take over that deal, stop these people from their riotous ways, etc., it'll be his choice on how he does it, which could be very damaging. But that was, again, one of the things that Andrew Johnson was stating about the Reconstruction Act, that you just can't put due process in the hands of a general. And that was the idea of the so-called sending troops into the states and still have due process. Because there's, you need to understand that the two don't work together. If military law was in place and the will of the general is what's going forward, and he decides that you need to be shot just because you refuse orders from the one of the commanding officers, and they shoot you and kill you, and nobody does anything about it because it's what? Martial law, military law, it's the way it is, Jack, sorry, shut up. Well, that's the idea of martial law. And so we know that due process diminishes. It's gone. So can you actually diminish due process? And what would it take that due process will just have to take a second seat? And there may be some extreme case out there that could possibly exist. I don't know how it would form here in the United States, because we the people, assuming that everybody rose up and just decided to stand in front of every court, every sheriff's office, and reject any of their presence. The question now is you got to ask, since the people are the ones that supposedly, and you know, they'll convince you that we the people run this country, and you're running it by our votes, and etc., that you would then need to be wanting to overthrow the people if you set martial law there to destroy the very things that they're objecting to, showing one that what you thought they wanted you to do, it's clear they don't want you to do it. So if you send military power over to them to get to rove over them and destroy them, what are you doing but destroying the government that runs you? Because most governments on the planet, you know, they like to make the people believe they're part of them and everything, but they, our Constitution is clear that we the people are supposed to actually be running the show, and that you're only there because we did put you there. And now we're rebelling against you because what? You've done something wrong, and we're absolutely saying that get out of the offices because you're corrupt, and then you're going to send in military power. Well, that's a form of tyranny. That would not be martial law in order to protect the government, because the government is the people. And so you got a conflict there just because of the that. So can we get martial law for just riots in the street, elections going wrong? Is there a blanket martial law that you just throw over the whole United States and everybody's supposed to diminish to a new form of executive orders? And a lot of people believe that these executive orders actually become law, and that you're obligated to them because some executive officer, in most cases the president, but there's also G orders, which is general orders, coming from generals. But all of that pertains to the militia, the military. Now, we don't have the state militias anymore, but we do have the militia known as the United States Army. And we've got a few other branches, but probably more than likely unconstitutionally set. But that's not the subject today. The question is when can military law tell my household and my family that a general will be coming by with his sergeants to stand at my door and we can't come and go, and that if they decide they want our horse, then they pick up our horse, and if they decide they want our cornmeal, they grab our cornmeal. Well, you know, we're looking at tyranny. because unless we are actually invaded ourselves and there's a war going on, there is absolutely no reason for that form of power to be over you as a citizen. Now, if the war is going on in your area, it's very likely that they got a right to at least get you out of there and force you out, for that matter, because we've got a war going on, and we're going to need your house to be part of the shelter as we shoot out your windows. And from your nice little stand you got here in the tree, and we're just going to make use of your property because there's an invasion and we got a war going on, and we ain't got time to worry about taking you to court and due process, etc. Now, that's an extreme situation that, of course, we don't have. So forget martial law. My conclusion is that martial law cannot be called in the United States unless such extreme situations and chaos exist, and then it can only come into the exact areas to clean up that particular mess. Once the courts are able to go back into operation, then of course the law is back. It's back in power. And in that case, then, martial law ceases to be martial law. The military is still there, and the general's still sending out orders. It's something else, but it's not martial law. So I do want you to understand the problems that we have with the scare of martial law. I would be more worried that they'll just send military anyway and call it martial law. Some people call it martial rule. There is a difference, a slight difference, but one is clear. But the question is can they do that in the United States, and can you actually declare martial law over the citizenry? This is something that needs to be understood, whether martial law is compatible with the actual blessings and security, the due process clause of the Constitution that protects the people at all times. And you're either going to go by the law under martial law, which would be abiding by the court systems and the law of the land, and the mayors or the county sheriffs that called you in to get this help, you would still be under civil authority in one way or the other. Once the chaos is back to the other side of that line, then martial law ceases by definition, and any standing army that's still thinking they're shoving people around, even the government agents of the area or the citizenry, would be unlawful and would just be tyranny. It wouldn't be martial law either way. But let's think about this, because we need to understand that if we have idiots like O'Donnell that just thinks, call martial law, well, we got to, first of all, get martial law and get out of the system anyway. We don't even need to be thinking of something like martial law. And so when we got people that's just got to call these things out and think that we got to work in such an extreme way over an election disagreement that they don't want, there's plenty of papers to file through the court system to take care of that. There's lawsuits galore. There's all kinds of torts and petitions to take care of that one. So I thought it was important to get this out. There's a lot of misconception of martial law. It has been abused throughout the centuries. Kings is one time there was a queen that put out martial law on a particular person, had them executed, or was going to have them executed through martial law. Turned out that it's time for dinner, so she went and had dinner, but as she gave it thought, she realized that martial law is too extreme for this situation. So he was still tried under the common law. And of course, they still executed him, but still, hey, that's how it works. They still at least use the right way of doing it. If they provided them with due process, well, then there you go. But the common law still prevails. Let's get that understood, because you'll find out through our School of Marriage Cement School of Common Law that we teach the common law and how it prevails against all other laws. So until Shiloh comes,